All right, we had a little technical difficulty there, but we are back. Again, thank everybody for tuning in. Thank Aaron and Zach from A to Z podcast. This is our third installment of Civil Discourse here with Jacorian Randall, Jaylon Gasper, and we're just going to pick up kind of where we left off. And I was asking you a question. Basically, do you? And we'll go, I guess, to you first, Jacorian. Do you think we'll ever get to a point to where people can appreciate that more long format discussion, to where we can get away with this whole? The media has us trained, I think, to look at debate in a certain way, to where you round up something so serious like abortion or healthcare in 2 minutes, and there's just no way you're going to be able to get a valid point across in that time, or good policy across at that time, I wouldn't think. So I'll kick it over to you. Do you think maybe we'll get to a point where we can appreciate longer discussions for elected officials?
I would hope we would get to that point. I don't think it'll be anytime sooner. Even though I would love for that to happen, but a majority of people aren't like us in this room who actually care to sit through a 10-minute response on what section of Title IV we need to cut or add to. Do we need to add another subchapter or an article? I mean, like, some people might not even care. A lot of people actually don't care about that stuff. So it's not probably going to be a while before we get to that. I believe we should get to that because, we're voting for people to assume the highest office in the land, or to assume any public office, and all we know is their stance on a talking point. And so you can't get much from a talking point, because I have a lot of talking points as well, but you're not going to know what I actually believe in from a talking point. It may sound good, but these debates, I don't believe that they're more focused on the actual policy. It's pretty much people, again, pandering to their base, like, hey, I believe in criminal justice reform. Well, what does that look like? They use the term fair and equal justice. And, you have people, hoorah, yes, I'm voting for you. You're not going to have people say, well, what would you do about it? And then the response is, well, if you look at our criminal justice system, and if you look at the laws that's in our title, whatever, in the government code or the criminal justice code in the state of Texas, if you look at this does that. But, legislation have unintended consequences all the time. But people don't understand that, or people don't really care about that. They just care about rooting for their they care about rooting for their team and rooting for their favorite person, and they care about simple words like fair, equal, freedom. For Democrats, and you learn this once you become a political candidate. I took a whole communications class just to run for office, and to talk to Democrats, you learn fair and equal are the terms that'll get them. For Republicans, it's about freedom and rights, liberties. That gets Republicans, or say the word Constitution. I'm for it, and you have Republican votes. That's how it goes, and that's what people care about.
Keywords there, using keywords, Jaylon.
Man, I actually absolutely agree with you. Because a lot of time I call it the debate sphere, which is like people like us who actually have done debate before, whether that's LD or anything. Is that we constantly for these presidential debates say things like, man, we need to have longer formats where people are allowed to bring empirical evidence and allowed to really extrapolate on their claims, and a person is allowed to really rebut that claim thoroughly. But when you kind of see as a masses what do people like or not, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The fact that you said literally that they teach Democrats fair inequality, and when you were about to say Republicans, I was like, I know it has to do something with liberty, and you said liberty, and so it shows that people just like these catchphrases and they cling on to these things because that's their tribe, and so they just at the end of the day, the debates. What normal people want from mainstream politics is to just feel good. And that's what debates do. That's why most of the takeaways were very superficial things, like Kamala doing the, I'm sorry for the identity joke, but the black woman, stop talking, I'm speaking, sir, that are, the fly on Pence's head. These were the moments people remember, not, them discussing policy or anything. So I absolutely agree with Jacorian.
Or the Shut Up Man by Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah. Shut up, man. What did he say? You're a clown or something like that?
Yeah, I thought he lost the debate after that.
Yeah, I think it kind of speaks to something like you said. People want the easy, right? And Zach and I actually had a long conversation about this after the last Civil Discourse, and we kind of got spitballing on some ideas, and it was like people want, like you said, they want the easy fix, right? And I was making an analogy to music. pop music. Pop music is 4-chord songs. It's easy to listen to. You can bob your head. It's got the same repeating phrases. If you're listening to country, you're going to hear something about backwoods. You're going to hear something about neon. If you're listening to R&B, it's across the spectrum. I liken politics to music in that, I guess if I can use that analogy to that, we're interested in jazz. We want the nuances. We want to talk about the details. The majority of the people want the they want the 4-chord song that's easy to listen to. They want the talking points. They just want to be able to go with it, right?
That's a beautiful analogy.
How do we get people to listen to jazz? I'll go to you, Jaylon.
I mean, we kind of had this conversation before, me and you, Trevor, and like I absolutely agree with the analogy. People just are cookie cutter things sell more, and for me, I guess the only way to really get people into it is I feel like it's a process, but I feel like the first thing is people starting things like this, which is Silver Discourse, which starting institutions are just areas where people can come together and really talk about issues, and where those where those discussions are regulated to the point to where like people actually have to talk about issues and not just talk with memes or talk with talking points, right? I feel like once people are exposed to something, that's how they learn. It's not, just, trying to like stand up from this corner and say, hey, y'all need to know more. Y'all need to learn more. Y'all need to research more. No, we have to expose it to them. So I feel like this is the first step. Now, after that, I don't really know.
I believe it has to do with the education systems. I think if we have more classes like on civics classes, government classes, there we go. You actually get people to engage in talking. If you require them to write a research paper over a specific issue or specific policy, you'll get more people interested and actually tuned in to what's happening in the world today. So I think that's a beautiful step to add on to yours. And I was in my senior year in high school. I took a government class. It was 2016 election year, and it was just me and my teacher were the only two Republicans in there. And then the entire class was, of course, Democrat. I graduated from Ozan, by the way.
Oh.
And so you had me and my government teacher literally debating 20 other students. And I believe that was the most productive class we have ever had that entire year, was just talking about the simple issues that was going on during the 2016 debate. So if we start those conversations in schools, and they're not just those conversations of where teachers lead, you don't want those teachers-led discussions. You want actually student-led discussions. I think that'll help students more, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I don't know what everybody else believes. In my opinion, I believe that'll help students more. So student-led discussions in classes without, the teacher deducting any points from that. So it's all to do with the education system and adding certain courses that'll get people or students more interested. And once you start that, you have a whole entire generation plugged in.
I like it.
I absolutely agree with that.
I like it. And, it's I always use the analogy, it's like trying to make it the cool thing to do, right? And you just gave an example of it. I'm actually in a class right now here at LIT where it's like, the teacher's involved, but it's student-led discussions, a lot of it. And it seems to be very productive. And I imagine in your time when you were at Central, you said?
No, Ozan.
Ozan? When you were at Ozan, it wasn't just you that was learning, it was everybody else in the room too. I assume that as y'all kept doing it, the better the discussions got and the more probably people were interested.
And I'm sure they researched more so they can, attack me with it. So and I've done the same thing. I researched more so I can attack them with it as well.
Right.
So, hey, gotcha.
Competition makes what? Innovation.
Hey, correct. The free market.
That's right. That's right. So let's touch on, there's all these issues. So talking points, what the media focuses on, right? You had the presidential debate where the main takeaway I took from that I saw the media was griping about, at least on the left, was Trump's refusal to denounce the white supremacy. It seemed like they were just like, shoot, grab it, and that's what we're sticking with, right? And with all these racial things going back and forth, and the media gets so hyper focused. Joe Biden, what is it? You ain't black.
If
If you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black. It was something to that tune. And it's like, I guess aside from the Civil War era, has race ever been a more political or politicized issue than it is right now? And I'll go to you, Jaylon.
I mean, yeah, we had like Jim Crow. I feel like there's just a certain faction of people who felt like we stopped focusing on social issues, and a certain faction of people who felt like we never really talked about what we needed to talk about in the first place. And so with me, I feel like just as far as like, is this the most race sensitive or most racist climate we've been in? Probably not. Definitely when you consider like a lot of white people support BLM, you know, I feel like what it is, it's just factions like spread off to their own tribalistic extremes. Like you have Antifa and then you have the Proud Boys, right? And I feel like for some reason, even though these things are both the minority, they're just highlighted by these 24-hour news cycles. All CNN wants to talk about is the Proud Boys. You know, all, Fox News wants to talk about is, you know, Antifa and burning down buildings. And so, like, we don't really have a chance to have these real conversations about, you know, hey, actually, like, me and Jacorian probably have some agreements on criminal justice reform. We probably have some agreements with the Black Lives Matter. So, and we don't focus on that and actually having conversations on that. So, I feel like as far as just the talking points thing, like, I don't know, yeah. That would probably be my answer for that.
Okay.
Yes. That's a lot to unpack in that question, because I don't believe America is more racist than it used to be. I mean, we had slavery, for crying out loud, right? We had Jim Crow. We had the segregated South. We had, you know, the KKK, which literally hunt down black people and Republicans for voting Republican, or to stop blacks from voting altogether in the 1960s. And you had the civil rights movement, which was a beautiful, productive movement. But I believe all social issues should be decided by society itself and not forced by the government or weighed in by the government through legislation or policy, whatever they want to do. But when it comes to racial tensions in America, talking about today, I believe that after the election of Obama, that we've seen more racial tensions in the United States. We've seen the divide between white versus black. You don't see that before President Obama, because during the time of President Obama, he did play the race card while he was in office many, many times. I'm like, you accomplished something that the black community has been trying to accomplish for years, and you're going to sit in this beautiful, magnificent office and hold the highest office in the land and play the race card. No, actually do something about it. You know, and that's my whole thing, is just to actually do something about it. Don't just give us these talking points, give us solutions, and actually provide these solutions in legislation and in policy, and do something about it. That's all I care about, is actually doing something about it and not just talking about it. I believe we should talk about it, but when you talk about it, bring some solutions to the table. I mean, President Trump already started with the First Step Act, with the criminal justice reform, which is a great piece of legislation. But we can go further, not just talk about it and just use it as talking points as a political win. No, because we still have a broken criminal justice system. I mean, look at the state of Texas. I can talk about that all day, our criminal justice system in the state of Texas. But it's about actually doing something about it and not just talking about it. It's doing something about it, and that's what I care about.
So I'll let you dig into that a little bit. What is Jacorian Randall going to do for criminal justice
I knew you were going to.
in the state of Texas?
So I think the Burma Chamber asked me this the other day at their calendar forum, what committee I would be on, and I told them the the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee, because they focus on criminal law, criminal procedure, probation, parole, stuff like that, etc., whatever. And from there, I believe I can help when it comes to reforming our criminal justice system. Because I mean, the state of Texas, our legislature loves to write criminal law. They really do. I mean, you can go to jail for years for taking an oyster out of the water 8 different ways. I mean, I find that to be ridiculous. Can you just fish for an oyster? You have to regulate it now and not go to jail for taking it out of the water. Wrong. 8 different ways. Wrong, by the way. So we have a lot of laws on the books that, and I told my sister this on my way from Houston, is that we break the law every day without even realizing it. I mean, we do, because there are so many criminal laws on the books that nobody knows what's right or what's wrong when it comes to, well, or what's legal or what's illegal, or that's determined by the government here in the state of Texas or anywhere in the United States. So what I would like to do is actually create a rebalance, or bring a rebalance to our criminal justice system that focus on protecting life, that focus on defending liberty, that focus on defending property, that focus on, creating equal opportunities so that people can actually pursue their happiness. This is the American values. I mean, our inalienable rights that the government cannot give us and the government cannot take away. And if we focus our entire criminal justice system on that, or any other system or whatever that we have in the United States, if we can focus on the American values and wrap that around the American values, I believe we'll be in a so much better place than we are now. So that's, dealing with policies like mens rea or over-criminalization, when it comes to bail reform, getting rid of the cash bail system for non-violent, non-jailable, non-sex offender cases, and coming up with something that actually hold people accountable instead of, destroying poor people's, taking away their liberty and locking them up in jail. I mean, I find that to be ridiculous. You lose your individual liberty because you can't pay a bail, or you can't pay a fine, or you can't pay a ticket. I mean, our criminal justice system has been used as a profit. It has been used for profit. And that's one thing I don't like, because that should not be in our law enforcement. That should not be in our criminal justice system to begin with, is the need for profit. So their line item budget on the city budget or the state budget, and it's true, I even looked it up. So it's so much to it that needs to be changed that I can't get it all into it right now, but there's so much to the criminal justice thing.
I see you nodding your head, Jaylon. Do you agree with some of the stuff you're saying there?
Criminal justice reform. I feel like we were gonna have some agreements on this. You have a really good stance on this. Definitely the removing cash bail, protecting life, protecting property. These are things that we should focus on in the criminal justice reform. And I'll even say a step further is, as far as sentencing discrepancies, focusing on minimum and maximums. Because there's a massive sentencing discrepancies between African American, Latino versus their white counterparts. So it's not only police reform, but it's also prison reform. It's also judicial reform. So I really like the rhetoric that you proposed there. And I like the first step back too. Pretty good first step legislation that's led into that's going into the right direction, and I feel that. But there's just something you said earlier that I just wanted to get your comment on. As far as the Obama thing, when you talked about how Obama played the race card a lot, right? I just wanted to get your opinion on that, because even though he probably did play the race card a lot, I'm gonna be straight up intellectually honest here. Both parties do participate in identity politics very heavily.
They do,
and so he probably did. But my question to you is just do you also think? Do you not think that race was just a center part of his campaign? Of his presidency, not only from the Democrats, but from Republicans, with Trump with the birther movement, saying that the guy's not even from the United States. People calling Michelle Obama a monkey. Do you feel like it was just Obama kind of centering on that race of social justice? And when we talk about, you said that you only really seen the renaissance of these racial tensions after Obama. Do you feel like, was that just the Democrats, or do Republicans and alt-righters are just very very anti-social justice, extremely racist rhetoric plays a part in that as well?
Well, I believe the birth movement was started by Hillary Clinton, right?
Oh, it was?
I believe it was in 2008, in the primary, the Democrat primary.
But
Hillary Clinton started that.
Yeah, I think she even dropped it, though, and apologized
but I think
for
Trump picked that up. I can agree. I believe both sides, Democrats and Republicans, especially the Tea Party, played a lot with the race card. Mm-hmm. I can agree with that. That probably escalated racial tensions in the United States. But the centerpiece of Obama's campaign in 2008 was hope, was bringing hope back to the United States and back to individual poor working families, to our education system, to healthcare. He was just bringing back hope. Yeah. I was in 5th grade when he was elected too, so I was like, a black man in office. This is fantastic. This is beautiful. This is awesome. I watched his inauguration. Actually, the entire school watched his inauguration, and it was the most beautiful thing I ever seen. So I was actually, that year, I was inspired to actually be in politics, not to run for office or anything, but to actually be in politics. So I became interested after Obama was elected. But I do believe that both parties or both sides did play into that or use race as a talking point or a political issue, and that helped spread the divide in the United States. But when it comes to Obama, I believe he could have put that in the bag if he would have done more, if he didn't play into the race card himself and actually been the unifier. He could have been a great unifier. I mean, he's a great speaker. He's very intelligent, but he could have been a unifier instead of helping with the divide. I mean, he was the president of the United States at that time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy because it's like I do understand that, and I do understand the narrative that, like, you know, Obama, Trump, a lot of people, well, at least in the Rust Belt area, there were a lot of independent voters who switched from Obama over to Trump in the 2018 election. But when we talk about Obama being a unifier, it's just like, you know, by just empirical measures, it seemed like he's kind of liked. I mean, even like when you talk about approval rating, one of the highest approval ratings of, modern.
He was a chill president. He was on the Ellen Show dancing.
Yeah, like people like him. I don't know. I just feel like certain factors after Obama was in office was what people really didn't like. I feel like people really didn't like Hillary Clinton more so about Barack Obama. But I mean, hey, the presidency and the rise in racial tensions in 2018. I feel like that's a study that could be studied for, like, you know, hundreds of years from now, because I feel like that was a centerpiece where racial tensions did pick up back up. But we also got to consider, you know, the Freddie Gray situations with police brutality. That was also a good, let's say, something that amplified racial tensions as well with police brutality, even though it's been going on for a longer period of time. So I don't know, though. I'm not sure. I just wanted to get pick your brain about that specifically.
Very good. So elections are right around the corner, and it just seems to me like both the right and left sides of the mainstream media, and I've been saying this, it's kind of escalating the closer we get to elections as far as division, not just racial, but just division across the board. My team against your team. Is there any way this election isn't screwed? And what I mean by that is we're already talking. The TV's already telling everybody at home, "Hey, get ready because it's going to be chaos when election times happen. The vote's going to be wrong. We got voter fraud to worry about. Like, it just already seems like they're just setting us up
for a civil war."
Yeah,
and I hate that.
And you know, I some people are saying that too. I mean, to what extent? And I'm going to go ahead and say this: to what extent, if any, do you think this is orchestrated? And I'll go to you first, Jacorian.
You know, that's a perfect question that I don't have a true answer on. But the media does play a huge role in our elections because they are the ones that's leading the national conversation, and they're fueling. And I should have added that as well. The media. I forgot about the media. Wow, how you forget about the media? The media, it fuels what we talk about. They fuel the division. They fuel the tensions. You have CNN, MSNBC. But again, they're a business. They're a private business, and they're pandering to their own clientele. So CNN and MSNBC have the liberals, the left, and you have Fox News, OAN, and whatever else have the right. And I mean, that's their prerogative. But why not just, market to the entire population, the entire populace, and you'll have higher ratings, you'll have higher revenue, higher profits. I mean, the benefits of that is endless. I mean, we do live in a capitalist society. But when it comes to the elections, I hear this all the time is that if Democrats win, we have to prepare for a civil war. If Republicans win, we'll have to prepare for a civil war. We're going to have to burn down everything. And it's the same thing with the Supreme Court nomination of Amy Barrett. You have the left talking about burning down buildings, especially in Washington, D.C., and harassing just our elected officials. That's what they're talking about. And then you have the right when it comes to mail-in ballots. I'm not going to talk much about mail-in ballots, actually. Or in election fraud, they have them talking about the election fraud. So there is this tension this year. I mean, this election year is weird already. And, I mean, campaigning for it has been weird itself. I mean, fundraising and events have just been ridiculous. I had a cruise canceled. It was ridiculous. I think that was the most thing I got out of that. But no, just kidding. All jokes aside, the media fuels our attentions, and if we can get that underhand, I believe that this election year won't be as scary as it seems, unless you can get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to tone down their rhetoric when it comes to gun control or when it comes to higher taxes, the Green New Deal, or stuff like that. If you get them to tone that down, it would be a little bit better. Or if you can get them to have conversation.
Hey, I'm cool. Yeah, tone down the gun regulation stuff. But everything else, yeah, I love it, man. Higher taxes, all that. Yeah. But as far as, can you repeat the question as far as the media? What was it?
Is there any way this election isn't going to be screwed?
Man, I have this take. People are just more reactionary than they are actually about it. By about it, it's a common jargon that I use with my friends. And about it basically means that, like, when I have an intention to do something, I'm going to actually do it. America isn't full of revolutionaries. It's not full of militia groups. It's not full of people who are just going to, like Bolivia type stuff. They literally, like, went to the president's door and, like, hey, bro, we're doing a coup. Let's go. But, like, America isn't like that. Because, like, our condition is okay. And that's all Americans care about. Americans aren't educated enough, and this is where I do agree with you to where, like, I want more networks that are just dedicated, are you familiar with Reason? It's the, like, libertarian centrist. Yeah,
I've heard. I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah. I kind of like Reason. I don't like some of their anarchist capitalist takes, but, like, I do like them because, like, they are so reasonable. Like, of course, Reason, right? But it seems like they come from objective facts, and that's it. I would love to have that. My only problem is that people do not care about that. People honestly do not care about objective facts because they don't want to educate themselves. They're not really educated on the issues, so they rather be. There's people who literally watch Fox News and CNN and MSNBC to be fed talking points so they can go out to their friend's house and be like, oh no, this is why you're wrong and you shouldn't vote for Trump, or this is why you shouldn't vote for Biden, versus, like, reading a study or reading a book or reading liberal theory. Like, you'll be surprised how many people don't know who John Rawls is, or how many people who don't know who are these John Stuart Mill is, these figure center points of liberal democracy.
Thomas Sowell.
Even Thomas Sowell. I've read Thomas Sowell too. Totally disagree with him on on a lot of things, but, like, really very, very inductive and intuitive man he was. And so, like, there's a lot of people who don't know this theory though. So people don't care about it. People just want talking points. So I don't think the election is necessarily screwed as far as, like, revolution and there's going to be a civil war. But there are going to be both sides fear mongering whatever is going to happen because they don't know enough about, like, because at the end of the day, like I told you, people just care about jobs. That's it.
No, that kind of speaks to the whole going back to the 4-chord pop song.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we need the jazz. We need people to be involved in the decision making process and actually learn what they're reading. Read books, read studies, and there's the dopamine hits and there's the addiction factor of the media, and I think it kind of reaches further than we give it credit. And what I mean by that is, people, if you talk about mainstream media as one factor, people will separate that from social media, but I don't think they're that far separated. I think most of the information you see on social media comes directly from the mainstream media. It's just an off branch of the same information. So we end up bickering and fighting over the exact same thing. And I make this analogy a lot because I like to ask people, if you had a room, you could have a room full of 500 diehard Trump supporters and a room right next to it with 500 diehard Biden supporters, whatever. And individually, you could stand up on a soapbox and say, hey, who all thinks politicians are corrupt? Everybody's going to raise their hand in either room. Who all thinks mainstream media is corrupt? Everybody's going to raise their hand in either room. then why do you let them tell you who the bad guy is? Why do you let them tell you who to be mad at? Why, when they tell you there's going to be rioting in the streets, are you jumping to do so? Like, it's a very interesting thing. And I think the media's control over our way of life is kind of overlooked. We talk about it a lot, but in terms of how it affects our psyche, our decision-making, our team playership, I think it kind of gets overlooked a lot. That's my little rant on the media. But let's bring this to the ever so popular topic of Corona and vaccinations and politicizing vaccinations, which a lot of people are accusing the president of doing it right now. He's come out and say he's got a due date, essentially, for vaccination. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not taking that. It's going to be just knowing what I know about the medical field. Like, you have to, if you're going to work at St. E or Baptist, you're going to have to take any vaccination that's out there. You have to get them all. You got to get flu shots. You got to get the whole 9 yards. I hear talks about this vaccination being pushed to a certain extent, maybe even outside of the bounds of the medical field. What's your take on, do you think it should always be, what is the idea of a forced vaccination seems insane to a lot of people right now. But is it that crazy? Is it too far-fetched in 2020?
We live in America where we enjoy our God-given rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we believe. And one of those, one of our liberties is individual responsibilities, or individual responsibility. So a forced vaccination on the entire populace, which you have people in our government, the most high, in the Senate, the Congress, actually the executive branch as well, talking about we have the military ready to distribute these vaccines and requiring all 365 million Americans to take this vaccine. I find that a little far-fetched because, again, we enjoy our individual liberties. And so you should give the people the choice, the right to choose. You should give people the right to choose whether or not they want to take this vaccine. And it comes to the whole mask issue, and it comes to a lot of what has been done over this course of the entire year. Government orders shutting down businesses, telling which businesses are essential and which are non-essential. You have bars that are shut down, and many of them are going out of business. Look at the state of New York. More businesses are closing than ever before. And that's a nice talking point right there, too. They lost over 700,000 jobs so far already in the state of New York themselves, in the entire state of New York. And that's due to the overreach of their government. And I said the same thing here in the state of Texas. There's an overreach of the government. It's far less than what happened in New York or California or Pennsylvania or Illinois or Oregon. But it's still an overreach of our government. Sometimes when it came to requiring people to actually follow these emergency mandates, that's totally legal in the state of Texas. If you look at Title 4, Section 418, Article 173, which gives the executive branch, whether the governor or the executive judge or the county judge, the right to jail you for 180 days or fine you no more than $1,000 if a person doesn't listen or follow your executive order, or in the city mayor as well. But I still find that as an overreach, because I do believe in the individual responsibility and individual liberty. So I'm not for mandating or force or requiring people to take a vaccine or to wear masks or to tell businesses if they're essential or not. But that's a whole
very good conversation. Very good. Jaylon?
I feel like as far as the vaccine thing, I think we end up on the same conclusion, probably with different premises though. For me, like not to because we've been doing good if agreeing with each other lately. So now here comes the disagreement. As far as just my philosophical way and how I look at choices, I'm definitely more utilitarian than I am libertarian in that aspect. Not politically, just philosophically. So when it comes to like as vaccinations though, I feel like there are certain, even me being utilitarian, there are certain degrees to where like we can't just support alt-right fucking authority. My bad. But authoritarian fascism, which is, I feel like any program that is literally where the military themselves go to your door and like administer anything. This is why when Beto did the mandatory gun grab thing, I was like, dude, you are so oh my god, I can't believe I voted for you for the Senate election. But like I was so mad at him because it's like, how can you really say that the military should come and actually like, inject these things yourself? Like, it sound a little Nazi Hitler like. But like, even with the mandatory like mask thing, gun thing, like somebody just coming picking up your guns, that's authoritarian. I feel like the avenue in which people do vaccines now though is perfectly okay, meaning that like vaccine, it's not that people are like just straight up anti-vax and the government is stopping people or forcing people to do vaccinations. It's just private industry or like things like school. In order for you to work for certain places or be in certain, your kids go to a certain school, you have to have these vaccinations. I feel like that's a better way to ensure people are vaccinated versus like sending a whole militia, the whole squad, and then like it's the gulag or something like in Black Ops. Like, nah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
The government failed this year at messaging when it came to the coronavirus. Both political parties, actually. Actually, to just reach everybody. I think the government should have just said, hey, we recommend this. You're not required to do this. I'm sure they would have had a much better response to wearing masks or to social distancing or to taking a vaccine. If they would have just recommended it and not required or forced people to do it, there would have been a much, much better response, in my opinion. We've seen it over the years. Again, government recommends something instead of forcing it, and there's a much better response to it than the government just forcing it all out there. So the government did a terrible job when it came to messaging. Both the political parties, the state governors, the county judges, the mayors, the congressmen, the White House, and so on and so forth. So I think that they should have done a better job when it came to actually messaging to the American people.
I'm sorry. Can I just ask you a question? As far as because like you said that they should have just recommended it like as a recommendation. But like they kind of did that in Texas for a while, right? Even though businesses had certain regulations, we didn't have a mask mandate. And then like you kind of seen coronavirus cases spike. Now this is culminated with actually more people getting coronavirus and more people getting tested. But my question for you is like, do you believe in authority is just inherently bad as far as like having some sense of authority when navigating a society?
It depends on who you get your morals from. Like,
Okay.
I get my morals from the Bible. I believe in good and evil. I know good from wrong, or bad from good, or whatever, however they say it.
Yeah.
I know that. I get my morals from the Bible. So when I'm in a position of power, I'll have a whole entire accountability team, which is the Bible, and actually I have people who actually hold me accountable for the actions I take. But in our government, we don't have those types of people because power does corrupt, and that's a true fact. Power corrupts. People go into government with great intentions, and once they get there and they stay there for a while, their good intentions are just simply fade away because their morals get played on, and they don't have that strong accountability team. So I'm not going to say authority actually. What was your question one more time?
Is authority inherently bad?
I believe it can be, because I do believe that power corrupts in any person.
Mm-hmm.
It's power. If black people were the majority and white people weren't, I'm sure we would have still had slavery. But it'd just be the other way around, and we'll probably still have more police brutality, but it'd just be the other way around. So yes, it can be inherently wrong. Just because of the fact that people just can't just hold themselves accountable. They actually have to have something or someone to hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I do like a kind of like I with the last thing you said, like some people like as far as masses, kind of do need like something to hold them accountable. As far as like that's why we have laws, that's why we have government. So like I guess that's the reason why like I really wasn't big on the mandates. At first I was kind of like, man, this kind of sucks, but I'm just like, hey, like, you know, even though I'm wearing a mask without people telling me to, there's some people who have to. And to ensure and maximize the most happiness for a society, maybe that authority is something that we need. Do you think?
No.
You don't think at all? Like,
no. When people make choices for themselves, people are in control of their own happiness, not the government, not other people. They are in control of their own happiness. Okay, so this is why we say the pursuit of happiness, because the government is not going to pursue happiness for you. I'm not going to pursue happiness for you or you. I'm pursue happiness for myself, because we are. I'm gonna use that word inherently. Oh, I cannot say it. Selfish. We are selfish people. I mean, we are. That's why we have great technology. We're, like he said earlier, a materialist society. That's why we have great materials that we actually love. Have an iPhone. Other people have Androids. You have the choices to make. You have the choice to choose your own happiness. And your happiness comes from choices that you make. So if people choose not to wear a mask and it makes them happy, that's their right. If people choose to wear a mask and it makes them happy, that's their right. The government should not pursue that happiness for you. You have that right to do it on your own.
So how far do we take the individual right of happiness over society, though? Like, say, for instance, like, this is about to be a crazy hypothetical. I'm known for crazy hypotheticals. Just stick with me, though. Say, for instance, like, some creep incel just masturbating in the park. We don't have that law on the book. We have that against the law for a reason. Even though he doesn't have, we want that, he could make the argument that, hey, I have the individual liberty to do anything that I want to. But, hey, nah, this is kind of a public space, and like, you know, you have kids coming to this park. So just because for society's reasons and for society's standards, we're going to have this law in the books that say, hey, you can't masturbate in public. And it kind of goes the same thing with just traffic laws. Like, and you kind of see how these traffic laws, authority, actually helps us when we're not even around authority. Say, for instance, like I just seen, like I just was coming here from Port Arthur, and like there was still some lights that were off, and like people couldn't navigate, and like, well, people had to navigate with just, you know, their knowledge of driving. And like there were no wrecks. There were no anything, no, no pile-ups. People could navigate and understand the traffic system because they had a system implemented in their head. Driving, when you drive, you're taught that like things act as stop signs when you can't, when they're not green lights or yellow lights or anything like that. So in that moment, the sense of authority actually helped people when, you know, the authority isn't present anymore, because now we have that system stuck in our heads. So that's where I like, again, all-out authoritative fascism isn't cool, but I feel like a lot of times, definitely from the conservative position, they kind of like miss out on, you know, the pros from like having some authority in some or in certain cases. So yeah, what do you think about that?
So what was your overall question?
No, my overall question was just focused on how far are we gonna champion individual rights, even if they kind of, you know, hurt other people in the long run. Like, say, for instance, like, yeah, you could have the individual right not to have a mask, but what if a guy, you know, who's immunocompromised, which is an older person, is around you and you don't have a mask, and they get the disease themselves? Like, yeah, you had the individual right, but now that guy is dead. So it's just like, I don't know. That's what.
Well, it brings me back to your entire car analogy, I guess you can say. I do like stoplights and I do like stop signs. That helps. But when people are driving, they are thinking about one thing: making it to their destination safely. Then, whether that's going 65 miles per hour or 75 or 90, they don't want to crash because they don't want to die. People care about their life.
True.
They care about their happiness, right? So even if we didn't have speed limits, people will still drive safely. Why? Because they want to live. And they want those in their car also to live. So when it comes to freedom, I'm just say freedom in general, because that's pretty much what rights are. Mm-hmm. Is our freedom, is that there should be no limit to freedom. There cannot be any limit to freedom, because then when there is a limit to freedom, that's when authoritarianism or fascism can creep in and grab an entire populace by hold and put them under a dictatorship. I mean, we've seen that across the entire world. Yeah, Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela. I mean, the more freedoms that we give up, the more rights that we give up, the more it makes it much, much more easy for the government to actually dominate our personal lives. So I don't think there should be any limits to freedom.
As far as limits to freedom, I'm trying to separate this from a political term and a philosophical term. So when you say freedom, do you mean like free will? Like as far as like we have the idea to make decisions on our own, or just that we should ensure liberty politically, enough liberty for everybody? Because like to me, it's like there are limits on freedom, like philosophically, right? You can't do anything you want. Actually, the definition of freedom, according to most self-determinists, is how much control you have. Because humans innately don't have control. Say, for instance, you can control your place, your social status, your socioeconomic status, and you can control the factors that you'll face and the discrimination you'll face for that. So I do feel like these things are still predetermined. So like when you say free will or freedom, what do you exactly mean by that?
So I do think you can determine your social status. I think I did that pretty well.
I'm talking about you can, as far as like, well, I mean, empirically, like you can say you did, but empirically, like say for instance, like even in America, upper mobility massively exists in the upper middle class. Onward, if for on average, poor people who are born poor are going to live poor, and not only that, there's generational poverty where people are born poor, and after that, there's generations of poverty after that because they had no opportunity from the get-go. So, like when you see what I'm saying there, to where like you necessarily probably can. There is a chance. There are anomalies like LeBron James where you can like work your way up to the top and achieve social status, definitely in a system like this, the capitalist system that we have, or the welfare capitalist system that we have. But as far as like you determining, as a masses being able to determine your outcome, like I feel like it's not really true. I feel like things are predetermined, and empirical evidence kind of shows that, right?
No, I don't. What you mean by predetermined?
Like about predetermined, about decisions are made before you and beforehand that dictate stances or dictate situations that you have, like or you go through. There's not really a concept of free will, but just basically decisions consequentially led to this moment here. That's like, say for instance, you as a person, things consequentially, you as a person may consequentially throughout your life. Things kind of just came together like the butterfly effect, right? Do you understand? You know the butterfly effect.
Know that.
Yeah. And so, these choices kind of, these decisions that you had nothing to do with affected you yourself. So, like, that's why I don't believe in the concept of free will exactly, because I feel like philosophically it kind of fails.
No, not necessarily. I mean, people have the free will to make any decisions they want to. I mean, you should have the free will to smoke, to drink, to drive, not to walk or talk. That's a totally different one, because that was determined at your birth. But when it comes to situation, you had an analogy that I should have just wrote it down. I can't remember it now.
Which one?
I can't remember what it was. It was a great analogy. But when it comes to free will or predetermined choices, I mean, everything is decided by a person. The choices they make is decided by them and not by society themselves. I mean, my mother was born poor. She started a business, but she also lost it because of high taxes, of course. I mean, you have many people.
No competition in the marketplace.
But you also have many people it's actually due to taxes. But you also have many people who started businesses who were born poor. You had, I can't remember, that movie Will Smith played on, you know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the name of that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. The guy started off poor, and he became
True story, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a true story.
It was based on a true story.
The black guy became, he started off poor. You know, when it comes to black people, we always say that just because of the color of our skin, it hinders us from achieving greatness in life or whatever people say these days. He started off poor. He was homeless. He had a kid. He lost his wife. But at the end of it all, through his struggles and his pursuits of happiness, through the choices, the many, many choices that he made, he actually reached a level of success that many people can't, or that many people have yet to reach because of the choices he make. You know, when it comes to poor people, I'm not going to say they're poor because of their choices, but I mean, again, you make your choices in life, or your life itself is determined by the choices that you make. So that's pretty much how I look at it, is that your life is determined by the choices that you make. So let's say, I mean, I probably set myself up to be a political candidate by accident because of the choices I made, just being hugely involved in the field of politics, and actually just being myself, actually, because I'm a great person, I believe.
Yeah,
I'm
awesome,
I'm
bro.
fantastic, by the way. But, you know, I don't believe that everybody's life is predetermined. It's just by the choices that they make.
So if I can't maybe kind of round there, maybe not sum it up because we're going to keep going, but maybe, Jaylon, correct me if I'm wrong, you're coming from a position of where you're born, the circumstances, the consequences of where you're born, how you're born, socioeconomic determines the rest of your life. And maybe you're saying it doesn't matter where you're born or where you're from.
Now, sometimes it helps to have that equal opportunity, because, I mean, I went to Ozan, and you had Westbrook. They had more programs and resources than we had at Ozan, which I find ridiculously wrong. And they have more success. Their students have more success than ours at Ozan, because they are taught to make, well, I'm not going to say that, but they have more opportunity at Westbrook. So there should be a level.
Why do they have more opportunity?
That's a good question. I don't even know. I wanted to look more into that, actually.
Talk to the school district.
Yeah, that's something I would explore. Don't worry, that wasn't a gotcha question. I got you. I know. You're very astute. I just thought you would know why.
I want to know why we don't have that equal opportunities when it comes to resources in our education system.
Both are public schools.
Correct.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean,
And so, like, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with performance, because I know performance has a big say in, like,
Correct, because
funding as
we ranked F in our in the TA academic whatever.
But y'all also had that big thing, that big TA thing that happened a while back.
And BISD.
But not to stray too much. As far as just clarify my position to where, like, as far as, like, because even you admitted to some self-determinism. Well, you said that, like, these things can hinder, being poor can hinder you as far as economic opportunity is concerned. And there are people that do have more economic opportunity just because of their inheritance, right? So even then, we're kind of like succeeding to at least some soft level of determinism, because we're seeing that these situations are still kind of cause and effect by things that had, like, that the agent themselves had no say in. You know what I'm saying?
But it can't stop them from actually, again, pursuing happiness and actually reaching that level of success, or the level of success that they believe that is success. So some people, I mean, my level of success is probably different than another person's, and probably yours and yours. So, and, you know, a poor person's level of success, I'm not saying that every poor person, but I'm going to just say one as just a type of analogy I can use or whatever, is that their level of success is reaching, getting a job that pays $48,000 a year, or getting a job that pays $80,000 a year. That's probably their level of success. I know my brother's level of success is being in the NFL. Guess what? He achieved this level of success.
Yeah.
He really did.
Awesome.
Mine is just owning my own business and just hiring people and doing a massive amounts of nonprofit work just to help out people in the community, to poor people, just build houses for homeless. I mean, that's my level of success. And so it's different when it comes to other people. But again, a person's happiness is determined by the choices that they make, and it shouldn't be determined by the government. And their success is determined also by the choices that they make and what they perceive to be their success.
And I guess because it's like with this, when you say about, like, it shouldn't stop them, because, like, for me, like, I consider myself a very successful person as well, that where I actively felt like I made good decisions and I felt like I reaped good rewards from it. But, like, kind of when you just look at it, I guess empirically, and you kind of see like on average poor people stay poor and rich people
No, that's not true.
Oh no, as far as like empirical evidence is concerned, poverty, generational poverty is a thing.
Correct.
Yeah, and so like now I'm not saying people don't have the chance to have the upper mobility. Now as far as that's why I say you're at least coming to some level of self-determinism, because self-determinism even says that we can have certain moral responsibility for certain actions, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, freedom is my definition of freedom is how much we want to control and we allow ourselves to control. Even with the government, just instituting the idea of a government, we are giving up control, right?
Huh?
Just the idea of a government, we're giving up control. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying we're giving up like Hitler type shit. Like we're just, no, but just the idea of a government itself, we're giving up control, right?
In a way.
Yeah. So in that way, that's what freedom is. It's not this blanket thing of free will where we think that like, oh well, every single thing that I do is up to me, and I am the god of my destiny, or I am the basically order of my path, and whatever I do is gonna work out. Because I know a lot of hardworking poor people, if you want to bring it back to personal anecdotes, that just stay poor. Unfortunately, they lived the metrics. They got married. They kept a job. They didn't marry in high school before they were married, and they still kind of stayed in the same tax quintile.
Are they happy? That's the question.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
That's the question. Are they happy? And if they're happy, then they reach their level of success, and what they believe success is.
They're probably happy until like something really bad happens and they gotta go out there fun.
I mean, that happens. I mean, somebody dies or they become broke again. I mean, something happens, or they lose their job. I mean, things happen.
Very good conversation, guys. I love it. I love kind of dipping into the philosophical side of it, because there's some really important stuff to discuss, and that's essentially what the founding fathers discussed.
Yeah,
it was like,
and I would love to be a part of that conversation.
And I'm so sorry for holding on this philosophical conversation, because we can go, but like I just watch you a lot, and I love how like educated you are and like intuitive you are, and a lot of Republicans my age I can't have this conversation with. So I was kind of really just wanting to strip certain political modes before we get to it and focus on our fundamental philosophical disagreements. So.
Very good. Would you say that, especially here on the local level, voting local, is it more or less irrelevant that he has an R or a D next to his name? Right? Like, because he said some things on criminal justice. You're like, yeah. So he's going for District 22. Could you see people on your side voting for him regardless of R or D just because they like what he has to say? Or do you think people are too far? No, it's got to be Democrat or it's got to be Republican.
And unfortunately, this thing is just so tribal right now. That's what it is. People are just so focused on, like, they're not focused on nuance. Because, like, honestly, I feel like if Jacorian got up and, like, really talked, he could convince a lot of people. And as a just not this is more technocratic, but as a Democrat, these are people that we kind of like, not, I wouldn't say fear, but fear, because intuitive, young, somebody who is different and out of the mode, more individualistic. But unfortunately, I feel like if politics it gets to a very purple place, and meaning where like we don't think about party at all, like of course that could happen, but locally, definitely for the seat you're running for, I think it does matter, unfortunately, to a lot of people.
The R and the D still matter. Still matter. What about you, Jacorian?
Because for me personally, I'm just using a personal anecdote. I don't care about an R or D. I just care about how the values of the person and what they stand for and what they believe. That's how I'll vote. So that I'll probably vote for a Democrat. It wouldn't be for a legislative office if they go against the right to life, if they go against liberty or property or happiness or just opportunity itself. I can't vote for somebody who goes against those the America's founding values. I just can't do that because that's what I base everything on. But I believe so. That's me. I don't care. I think it shouldn't care. But it does, unfortunately. It matters. Just because the way the political atmosphere is right now in the United States is that you're either Republican or you're either Democrat. You cannot be both. So way back when, there used to be conservative Democrats. There used to be liberal Republicans. Now, if you're a conservative Democrat, you get kicked out, you have to become a Republican. If you're a liberal Republican, you get kicked out and you have to become a Democrat. I mean, that's just the way it is nowadays. And I find that in my opinion, really ridiculous. And because once you're elected into office and you actually make it to Congress or to the state legislature, it doesn't matter about what party you're in. No, because once you get there, everybody is focused on how can we make society better. That's what they're focused on. How can we make society better? So you're sitting in the legislature, I'll be sitting in the legislature with 149 other people coming up with ideas of how we can better fix our criminal justice system, how we can better fix our education system, how we can better allocate funds or resources to help mitigate floods, how we can do that better. It's not about what Republican or Democrat once you're in the elected official. It's about your constituents, because you're not just representing Republicans, you're not just representing Democrats, you're not just representing blacks or whites or Hispanics. You're representing a diverse community of people, and you're representing a diverse community of people that comes from different backgrounds, that have different experiences. So you must take their life experience, and I say this all the time, is because when people say you don't have enough life experience to hold this office, I'm like, I don't need the life experience. I'm gonna use the life experience of everybody else, of my constituents. I want to hear their stories and see what I can do to help them. And if I can listen to their stories, I can actually embody their life experience and use that to effectively represent them in the state legislature. That's what I care about, and that's what I call fair and equal representation. And also, if we get rid of this gerrymandering ordeal, because I'm totally against gerrymandering.
Amen.
So if we get rid of that, I'm sure we'll have great. And once you get rid of gerrymandering, that's term limits right there.
Yep.
Because
exactly.
I mean, the people are term limits, and once people vote in an election that's 50-50 or 51-49, that's in that range, you'll have a Democrat or a Republican. It'll be interchangeable. So it'll create a whole new class of politicians in our political atmosphere, and it will help alleviate the fear-mongering and help alleviate most of our societal problems, because you'll have fair and equal representation.
I love that, and I think most people when you say, let's get to that purple point, most people when you say, hey, I sure would love to be at a point where I'm only concerned about the words coming from the elected official, the policies, what he or she's actually doing. What are they working on? The R or the D is, a lot of people would like to see that become irrelevant, because I think they're becoming more and more, pissed off at the system itself, Before we close this up, I want to ask you both this, and I think I may have asked you both this before separately. Can you think of anything that is currently being pushed by the media, right, left, whatever, that is verifiably false? Yes, very good question there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, look. Man, this is hard.
Because I stopped watching the news this year.
Well, yeah.
It's just,
I don't blame you.
It's just hard for me, because if I answer something, like, just out of intellectual honesty, I do want to, do both sides, have examples for both sides, because
Right.
both sides do have something, but I don't want to get killed by my side, man.
But isn't that sad to say that,
yeah,
though?
it is
Like,
sad, it's
I
sad.
mean,
I'm legit scared, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it, because, like, who else gonna do it? They're not gonna debate me on it, right? But
What do you have to lose?
exactly, what do I have to lose? Probably a presidential position of the Young Democrats, but hey, who cares? For me, let's say I could start with Republicans. Definitely, it's kind of like the mail-in ballot voting thing. It sucks, because it's just like, if you talk about mail-in ballot voting and like the protections that we need for it, and just to ensure people, like all people can have access to it, like, you're right, there are some like security measures that we should take. But when you just say that mail-in ballots inherently are fraudulent, when your president literally does mail-in voting, the troops that we love so much, because, like, I love my troops. My dad voted when he was overseas, so it's just like, these things aren't inherently bad, and like, these things, the fraud that does happen is very minuscule. But like, there is security that we need to we do need to focus on security of our elections, not because of some immigrant caravan that's about to come over and vote for everybody, but just because, like, I'm one ensuring that everybody not only has the right to vote, but that their vote is secure. And I feel like that's perfectly fair. And, sometimes I see some Democrats do the exact opposite and say that just because, they're kind of Republicans are using this as a fear-mongering tactic, a lot of Democrats are super reactionary and say that we shouldn't focus on security at all. And no, we should probably still focus on it, but just don't let that that type of stupid rhetoric from that side kind of drown out at the end of the day the nuanced opinion of we need to focus on election security. We need to focus on ensuring the right to vote for everybody, and not have 100,000 or 500,000 ballots be ruled basically
Ineligible?
Uneligible. Thank you so much.
Or ineligible.
Yeah, ineligible because somebody spelled their name wrong or something, or put the wrong put instead of 2538 they put 2536 or something. And so I feel like these things are important. Talking about election security and voting rights is important. So I feel like that would be my example of kind of the two extremes that deal with that. And I feel like that's a big topic that's just being drowned out by talking points.
Very good. Jacorian?
So
Something that is verifiably false.
gosh, I can't stand watching the news. I read it.
I don't blame you.
So
I don't blame you.
there's two things in my opinion is when it comes to the government's or Trump's response to coronavirus, and also when it comes to Trump being, and I quote the left on this, a racist. When it comes to that, or never denouncing white supremacy, which we probably touched on here, right? For 2 seconds.
A little bit,
Yeah.
Okay, so
but we can go back to that. Yeah.
So just the coronavirus response that Trump did, he was impeached by the House in January, and he'd been knowing about the coronavirus since I don't even know when, but he did something January 31st, which was, close down our borders or close down travel from China, which I believe was great. He also did something else. I'm drawing a blank now. I can't remember now.
No, take your time.
Long time. So we had the travel restrictions from China. Then he had the travel restrictions from some of the European countries. So he stopped travel from those countries to decrease or to slow the spread of the coronavirus. And that was the first step that he took. He didn't mandate masks, because, again, individual liberty that he believes as a Republican, of course. And then he didn't mandate, he did, I could say, close down the government. I mean, he canceled my cruise, and that was happening in March. He did. He closed the ports, which was very upsetting. Spent thousands of dollars for it. He worked with the NBA, NFL to, postpone or cancel games or an entire season, which happened, which I guess he brought back football.
Yeah.
But also, he's worked with both Republicans and Democrats to get a stimulus bill out. He did that. He also wrote some executive orders because Nancy Pelosi don't want to meet us halfway, at least meet us halfway on a new stimulus bill. He had to take from the HEROES Act and, extend the payments for unemployment benefits, the unemployment benefits payments. He had to extend some programs from the HEROES Act so that people can actually have some type of sustainability or stability in their life while they are in quarantine or jobless or something like that. So he did that when it came to the coronavirus response. We have tested more than 50 million Americans, which is more than any other country in the entire world. And we test at a rate, I believe it's 2021 per 1,000 people. And that's more than any other country, because the second is, I believe it's Japan, who tests 18 per 1,000 people. Hopefully I'm getting these numbers right. I'm gonna have to go back and check myself, because those numbers were back in April. And so I'm sure it expanded more. We're probably testing 100 per 1,000. Yeah, I don't know. But his response was great. It's just the governor's responses, of California and of New York and Pennsylvania, of locking the elderly up in nursing homes. I find that really ridiculous, and that increased a lot of deaths in our nursing homes. You had state government shutting down businesses. He has state governments shutting down schools, and the media blames Trump for an economic recession this year. I'm like, we were going to have an economic boom. If the COVID-19 never happened, we would have had a beautiful year. Our economy would have been beautiful. I mean, our stock markets was at 29,000 before the coronavirus, then it dropped down to 19,000. Now it's back up to 28,000, and it shows you where our economy was actually about to go this year. We probably would have been a little bit over 30 right now if COVID never happened. But to say that Trump is to blame for all the COVID-19 response in every last state is ridiculous, because he let state governments dictate their own response, and because again, he's a Republican and he believes in state rights. the 9th, 10th Amendment, he believes in that. So also he freed up government control, and he actually letting state governments go to other countries and buy directly from other countries PPE and other ventilators and masks and gloves that are needed for our hospitals or just for regular people. I mean, the mask industry is booming right now. The PPE industry is booming right now. Lysol is booming. Clorox is booming. But he's letting state governments actually buy those directly. And then I'm touch one point on white supremacy. He has denounced white supremacy countless of time. Not twice. Many times in 2017. He did it this year. He did it in 2016, 2015, and he actually did it in 2000 as well. He denounced white supremacy. He disavowed David Duke in the KKK when he found out that David Duke endorsed him in his 2016 run. He said, "I totally disavow. I do not want his votes. I do not want his endorsements, nor do I want any of his supporters' endorsements or votes." He said he don't want it, and I guess the media itself just will never let Trump get away from this topic of does he support white supremacy or not. But I'm like, he denounced it about 10,000 times. You don't see that. So at the presidential debate, he had to denounce it again. He said, sure. He could have did a whole nother better denouncement of that. I think he could have said that a little bit better. But hey, it's still disavowing white supremacy. Yeah. It's like, sure. I mean, he said many, many times he's not for white supremacy. He's not for any groups of hate. And that includes the KKK. That includes Antifa. That includes any left wing or right wing hate group. He said he disavows those. He does not like those. So he totally disavowed and came out against hate groups and white supremacy and racism itself.
What say you, Jaylon? Do you think he's done enough to disavow that? Do you think the media needs to keep harping on it, or what?
For me, personally, like, with is Donald Trump a racist meme? For me, it's condemning something is more than like saying vague statements of truth that like everybody agrees with. Everybody agrees with like white nationalism is bad, white supremacy is bad. I understand there was some media opportunists who kind of hop on that thing to say that David Duke nominated. I think David Duke did some ironic stuff and like supported Biden or something, and like Richard Spencer it was Richard Spencer, he's voting for Biden. So like when a racist says that, that doesn't hold much weight to me.
Like, who are you? No, you don't matter.
Yeah,
nobody likes you.
Nobody likes you. Your opinion is totally out of the mainframe. Nobody cares. So I kind of hate when the media opportunities kind of say stuff like, oh, this is why we can prove he's a racist. I'd rather focus on his actions alone as a person. My only problem with Trump is just some of his past rhetoric, as far as like handling certain racial things. Like we can bring up the Charlottesville thing to where like he said both people on both sides were fine people.
But you gotta look at the full statement itself.
He did end up like calling out a specific group, that Charlottesville group. But for me, it's like even with certain factions that do support him, like the Proud Boys, I just feel like he really slipped up on that question. And I feel like specifically in the debate, I feel like that was an important moment for him because that's when everybody's watching. People don't really care about like the vague statements statements afterward because it just comes off as a politician. Do I know if Trump is racist? Me personally, I don't know. There's just a lot of like weird like things. Trump is guilty of casting prejudice on people before. Even if we go back to the Central Park 5 thing, even if we go back to his 1975 court case where it showed that he was discriminating against his workers. But to say that he is a racist and everybody who votes for Trump to say specifically everybody who votes for Trump is a racist, it's a generalization and it's a flat out lie. And I do not agree with that rhetoric. But I do agree with that Trump has slipped on his rhetoric as far as like defending racial tensions. But as far as the coronavirus, I really just want us to go back to that because again, as far as like allowing states to implement their own strategies as far as how they control the coronavirus, I feel like it was the most optimal just because states are different. One thing I kind of hate about certain Democrats is that they want to totally do away with regional politics, and regional politics is very important. Naturally, people in California are going to have more cases. People in New York are going to have more cases. Not only
Texas as well.
Yeah, Texas as well. Exactly. Not only these populations are big, but they're dense. They're very dense. Definitely New York and California. People are literally on top of each other. So we need different modes, and each state need different modes and different strategies to do that with. My main problem with Trump, though, is just kind of his ill-preparedness going into it. I feel like it got to a moment to where like he was swinging and he got the swing of things and he got right. But as far as like in May 2018 when he let go of his pandemic response team, and then like later that year he let go of his chief epidemiologist, these things could we could have been better prepared for these things. And you bring up the ventilator things, which is true, he did do the ventilator things, but then there was like a batch of ventilators that were sent to New York that were botched, and they didn't even they couldn't even use them. Weren't
they stored by the governor of New York?
Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah, he stored a lot of PPE and a lot of ventilators.
Oh, wow. Well, if that's true, I'm going to read up on that to see. But I just remember the ventilators that were sent there were ineffective when they actually had to use them. But it could have been Andrew Cuomo, too. Another thing, I don't like people using Andrew Cuomo to dunk on Trump. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't really care about that. But for me, yeah, it was just kind of the ill-preparedness going into the coronavirus that I felt like really made certain periods, like really after April, pretty chaotic. When the spike in Texas happened, that's when stuff started getting chaotic. But I feel like once it got to the swing of things, it was okay. And when we're talking about the corona relief bill, I feel like Democrats and Republicans need to work together and just release it. Even if it's not what I want personally, the American people need a coronavirus relief bill. So I do disagree with Nancy Pelosi doing a strong arm for it. Mm-hmm. At this point, we just give us
just do it.
Yeah, just do it, man.
Yeah, and that's one thing I hate about politicians is that they use every disaster as an opportunity.
Yep.
I mean, and they said it themselves. You never let a disaster go to waste.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing I liked about Ted Cruz, with the Rudy Ginsburg thing, at least he was honest. He said it straight up, this but politics. We're gonna this would happen in politics. They had some people who wanted to seem like, oh no, well, when we did that with Obama, it was different. It was different. Like, no, it's the same thing. It's politics.
For crying out loud.
It never changed.
The Republicans had the Senate, and Obama did not.
Yep.
Democrats did not. So of course he's not going to get his Supreme Court nominee. And of course Trump is going to get his because he controls the Senate. And he nominates.
That's just how politics works.
Of course it's his.
And now if you hate the Senate, that's another thing. That's another thing.
And now how many different things can we fight over?
Yeah.
Because it seems like any bit of information that hits that main line, it's like it's divided already. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything. And it's going to get turned political, and it's going to be divisive in some way. So to round this up, guys, let's just kind of touch a little bit about what you two are doing within the individual community, because I know you're running the Young Democrats, correct? Do you have anything coming up? Any events that we got going on? Anything people need to know about?
Well, as far as events and stuff, we're kind of putting a lot of things off because of COVID. We want to make sure people are safe. We don't want anybody contracting anything. But as far as what we're doing right now, we are still holding virtual Zoom meetings every month for our general meetings, and we have our general meeting for the Southeast Texas Young Democrats every first Wednesday of the month. So for this month, it already passed, but for next month, that first Wednesday would be November the 4th. Wow, probably need to change that, right? I don't know. We'll just follow the Southeast Texas Young Democrats on our Facebook page, and we'll notify you with our next meeting. And that's really all I do. And I debate people, and I that's really all I do, me personally.
We should have Lincoln Douglas debate, right?
Yeah,
Love those debates,
man, bro. Like, and that's something actually I want to start off. Like, once this gets bigger, like we can have formats, in-person formats.
That's what I want.
Yeah, and I know you talked to me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, initially when I started this, it was, I didn't have COVID in mind and all that. So I actually originally planned doing this with a crowd, with a small audience, because the test isn't just for you two. The test is for the audience too.
Yeah.
Can you shut up and listen? Right. So it's kind of a way I wanted to get people used to, like we were talking about earlier. Get them used to jazz. Get them used to the nuances of the conversation. Remind me again, Jacorian, when I spoke to you a couple weeks ago on Facebook, you had an organization that you were working with, a charity organization. Was that it? What do you have coming up?
Second Chance. So
Second Chance.
Right now, what we're doing is I chair the Second Chance Community Outreach Project, which is sponsored by the Jefferson County Republican Party, which gives people with minor offenses, non-sex offender, non-violent offenses. We have a team of lawyers that's ready to work pro bono to help get their records expunged or any other judicial term that they use. We have a whole list.
Yeah.
Can't remember all of them. I just know expunged. Right. So we have that coming up. We've actually been prepping it for a few months now so we can get it right. I mean, not everybody's going to qualify for it because, we're actually going by the book, by the law on how to do this. So we're about to have a website that comes out where people can actually pre-qualify on the website, and we'll send them an email saying that, hey, you're qualified, or hey, you're not qualified. And I can't talk about all the legal stuff because I'm not a lawyer, and so we have our own lawyers for that. So we have that coming up. I can't wait for that to start and for it to be an active thing. And I think it's going to stay as an active program here in Southeast Texas every 3 months, I believe that they were talking about. So that's what I'm doing right now. Of course, running for office as well.
So where do people go? Website?
Yeah, so www.jacorianfortexas.com. That's the number 4. And we spell Jacorian is Jacorion, not A-N. The number 4, Texas spelled out.com. You can find me on Facebook at Jacorian for Texas as well. If you message me on Facebook, I will respond myself. Nobody else has, they have access to my Facebook, but nobody else on my team responds to messages but me because I actually care about talking to the individual person. That's just who I am. Or I think my phone number's on there too. On there as well, my second cell phone.
You're gonna get some weird calls now. No,
trust me, I get calls all the time. It'd be like 2:00 in the morning. Somebody called me. We talk for like an hour and a half. I'm like, I'm not tired. I don't get tired until like 4:00 in the morning. Anyways, I'm getting used to it and trying to wake up at 6:00. So 2 hours of sleep. I'm functioning on that and coffee, and so that's how I'm functioning. Nice. I used to be the president of the Golden Triangle Young Republicans. So it's great that you're young Democrats and I used to be young Republicans.
I'm walking in your footsteps, Jacorian.
I love it, man. I love it. So just to cap this off, guys, man, I really appreciate y'all coming in and having this conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again soon. I don't actually have the next date set for the next one, but I am working on that and getting the next group of people in here. Jacorian Randall, District 22, running for the Texas seat against longtime Desitel. Joe Desitel has been there many, many moons. Man, I wish you all the luck in the world, and maybe we'll get another phone interview or something before Election Day.
Early voting starts on October 13th. That's this Tuesday.
October 13th.
And we need people from either party to be election judges. Did the training already passed? It was supposed to be October 12th. That's tomorrow, actually.
Oh wow!
I think there's a training, so I think people should be. Yeah, to be clerks or election judges or poll watchers or just electioneers. We just need you out there from both parties. I believe in this bipartisan stuff. So
Very good.
Politicians like that lose all the time. Just saying.
You got to be in a box, man. You got to put you in a box. We can't have this mixing and mingling. So District 22, Jacorian Randall, second chance. Be on the lookout for that as well. Yes.
Second chance.
Awesome, man. Love the work you're doing. Jaylon, man, thank you so much for coming back in.
Of
That's
course.
the E2 podcast?
Oh, yeah, E2 podcast. I also have a podcast that I do when I want to. Okay, and it's awesome. If you like talking about theory, talking about ideology, policy, that's my biggest thing. So, yeah, if you like that, E2 the podcast. Also, if you want to, just, adventure and just see what we're doing locally as far as politics, please follow us on Facebook at Southeast Texas Democrats, Young Southeast Texas Democrats, and just see what we're about. We accept anybody, nobody, no matter your political affiliation. If you just want to hear what we talk about and what our action plan is, just hear us out.
Very good, man. Man, thank y'all so much. I love the conversation. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Zach, from behind the lines there, doing all the work, making us look pretty. And thank you, the A to Z boys, again, for letting us use the studio here. And keep it civil, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Man, thank y'all.